Okay, another quick cartridge comparison. This time I dug these out of my arsenal. So I did already the 270 and the 7 Rem mag. But to add for a comparison, here's a 308 Winchester and here's a 300 Win mag. Now, 300 Win mag, there's no denying its efficiency, its versatility, and the power it has. It's a great all-around cartridge. It does a tremendous amount on larger game, especially, there's a reason why Federal puts an elk on their box with this particular load. Yeah, it has no problems killing an elk. Elk are tough animals, and the 300 Win Mag is not shy about knocking them over. Then again, neither are any of these. But that said, there's differences in how they perform. It all comes down to your style of hunting. For me, I spend more time hunting deer than I do elk. So for me, I prefer to have the 270 because it does less body damage. If you're within 150 yards, the 7 Rem mag and the 300 Win mag create some serious holes. And there's nothing wrong with that in of itself, because I know there's people who say, oh, there's no such thing as two dead. Yeah, but I don't want to exactly be throwing away half the animal either. So there's that. So for my application, I prefer the 270, not only just because it's accurate, but it's also something that my wife, who has bad shoulders, can manage the recoil on, and it doesn't hurt her. It punches a good hole in the deer. It goes through. They're dead. And like I said, using this specific build-up that I did right here, this specific load that I developed, I killed my first elk with it. And it did a great job on it. And here's the thing. Since 6.5 PRC and 6.5 Creedmoor are so popular and people are using them and they are successful with them on elk, there's no reason to doubt this cartridge's capabilities, especially when you hand load them, or if you want to have a custom hand load made up for you. And there are plenty of people who will do that. I know that's one thing I've been talking about, doing that for some friends, is helping them get their rifles loaded for, so they can have that option. But here's the one thing I will say: if you are recoil sensitive, then the 300 Win Mag is not really a good option, and the 7 Rem Mag really isn't either. It kind of narrows it down to these two. Now, I know there's other options in here. Guys will talk about the 280 Ackley improved. Yeah, you know what? The one thing I haven't heard from a lot of guys when they talk about the Ackley improved, because I follow several channels, including Backfire. You know the one thing I haven't heard them talk about? The cost. That's the one thing. You know, the average cost for 280 Ackley improved is $80 to $85 a box. Who wants to spend $4 a bullet or more? And the entry-level rifle costs about $1,400, and it goes up from there. All day, you can find pretty affordable rifles that are accurate in 308 and 270 all day long. You can find these two rounds just about anywhere, and it's not going to cost you an arm and a leg to either hand load it or just to buy for it. And they'll do everything you want. Again, because I like a flatter trajectory, I prefer the 270. But again, if you're also recoil sensitive, there's nothing wrong with a 308. There's nothing wrong with even the 6.5 Creedmoor. But I'm going to tell you this, when it comes to shooting these guys, the 270 and the 308 are far more efficient and ethical than the 6.5 Creedmoor. That's not me making it up. This round has been around for 100 years and is still used. You can look up on the channels of Randy Newberg, Steven Lines, and even Backfire. They all did surveys. And it's an average. 1 in 5 hunters prefer the 270, followed closely by the 30-06 and the 308. Why? Because at the end of the day, there's other factors involved besides the bullet's efficiency. It's the affordability. People aren't afraid to buy things and try new, but they don't want to go bankrupt in the process. So again, tying back into what I'm working on, utilizing this as a parent case to engineer and design a new one still allows me to use common components, kind of like these guys. See that? H4350, H1000, for the most part, are still very common and easy to get just about anywhere. Whether you order your stuff online or you go to your local podunk store or big city town, wherever, these are not that difficult to find. I do choose to use a Magnum primer when I reload. I like a little hotter jump start. That's just me. If you want to use a standard primer, then go for it. But for me, I like to be able to get a hot burn. This particular load, 150 grain Nosler AccuBond long range, 54 grains of the H4350, and a Magnum Remington primer. I'm getting pretty good groups. I can't complain. They're consistently under half an inch. I know I mentioned it in a previous video that I took along with my wife. We both took 6 deer and an elk. I got the elk. She didn't get an elk. But either way, one of those does that I shot was at 375 yards. This went in, did its damage, and punched out the other side and had a good wound channel about let's say close to 1.25 inches wide. She literally spun in a circle and then fell over. This hit exactly where I was aiming. Average out here where we live, we're shooting 200 to 225 yards consistently. I like to have the flatter trajectory. I don't have anything against the 308. 30 cals, I like the 30 cals. But the thing is, it's not really needed on medium game, which is what we mostly spend our time doing. So I prefer this. And actually, believe it or not, if this is loaded hot, has more recoil than this. It doesn't make sense to me, but that's the way it works. So I have this, and it's a good crossover. It's not that far behind a 7-rem mag in terms of overall performance. With the load I've worked up, I went through a ballistics calculator. I still have over 1,700 foot-pounds at 500 yards. So the guys who are going, oh, but 270 is only a 300 to 400 yard gun. That's a lie. With the right load, you can easily stretch these things out to 600 and be ethical on killing elk. That still puts you in the same wheelhouse as 6.5 PRC. And if you can ethically kill an elk with a 26 caliber, you can definitely ethically kill an elk with a 27 caliber. And I would argue even more so.